This is Dr. Maddy Roth with Roth Consulting Group. Today I have another guest. I have Allie Diemers from Anchor Pelvic Physical Therapy. She's one of my good friends, and she has a super successful practice in Florida. So go ahead, Allie, and introduce yourself.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, Maddy. I'm excited to be here. Like you said, Dr. Allie Diemers. I own Anchor Pelvic. We're in Winter Park, Florida.
Okay, tell us when you opened your business and then what inspired you to open your practice.
I kind of had an inkling for a long time that I maybe wanted to open a practice, like a small solo practice. I thought we moved to the Orlando, Florida area in 2019 and came from the DC area where pelvic floor is just a really big hub. There's a ton of practices. Seems like all the doctors refer. And then I moved here and it just felt like no one really knew about pelvic floor therapy. So it was kind of a big shift for me. I just was contracting for another company for a while and then eventually just kind of decided like there was a greater need here and there were more people to be served. So I opened the practice in August of 2022. So we just hit our 2-year mark. And just went from there. So I was solo for a while and then again got super busy or too busy for me and decided to start growing just to be able to serve more people.
Awesome. Yeah, so you opened in August. I opened my practice in November of 2022, right? So
Yeah.
you were a little bit ahead of me, but not
Right.
too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we opened very similar times, and we've just been having fun kind of seeing what the other person is doing, and we have a little, I don't know, when one person does something, it just gives us the confidence to try it ourselves, so it's been really cool.
I think like coaching and like being in a group and having friends who also own practices in different areas, it just helps you in so many ways because it's like gives you so many more ideas. And then it also, I think, has really helped me like make decisions much faster because I can, instead of like hemming and hawing about something for a long time, I can run it by all you guys and get, oh, I tried that. It worked. It was awesome. Oh, don't do it. It's terrible. Just everyone's advice. And I think it just helps you kind of elevate your practice much faster when you have that group support.
Yeah, for sure. Even things like workshops. I know for a while we were kind of like, oh, is it best to give a full price evaluation or a discounted one? And we've all been able to troubleshoot different things. And I think just like finally, after all that data, we kind of figure out what works best for most workshops. And just
Totally.
as an example, but what got you into pelvic health? Have you always been in pelvic health? I don't think I ever knew this about you. So I'm curious.
So in my PT school, we have to do like 4 internships. And my last internship before I graduated got canceled. And they ended up being like, well, go to this pelvic floor clinic. And I was like, okay. It was like either there or do another sniff or something like that. I knew I didn't want to do that. So I was like, okay, I'll try it. So I ended up doing my last 12-week clinical at this private practice in Maryland, where I'm from, where I went to PT school. And I just kind of fell in love with the field and they ended up hiring me, training me, and I've kind of been in the field ever since.
So I just love Allie, and I just feel like your business is always going to succeed because you have such pure intentions, and it's just crazy. I mean, her practice is so successf我You wouldn't hear it in her voice. She's very humble. But her practice is actually insane. And I think God just continues to just make it happen because it's his will. And I'm always like so impressed.
Thanks, Maddy. That's so sweet. I'm like blushing over here, but
oh,
it is funny.
Yeah,
like,
I'm just
one of the things my husband and I like talked about a lot in the beginning was I would just like when we started to grow, I just kept praying like, just grow it so big and so fast that like I can't take any credit for it. And I mean, that's really what happened. I never would have predicted like 2 years in. I mean, we still have a lot of growth to do. And, you know, it's not perfect by any means, but I never would have predicted that, you know, we'd be here. So it is
Mm-hmm.
exciting.
Allie, I just always laugh because I'll be Voxering you and you're just like, yeah, telling us about your monthly numbers and casually like, yeah, I'm at SeaWorld right now with my kids. I just think it's so funny, like how much stuff you do. So Allie's a mom of 4 kids that are young. So tell us about that, running your business as a mom and how you've made that work. What are the pros and cons of owning your business as a mom?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think that could be like another 4-part podcast series, but
Uh,
but yeah, so I have 4 kids ages 9 to 2, and I started the practice when my youngest was like 3 months old. So we actually just talked about this recently. You know, there was a lot of prior to that I had always just worked like 2 days a week and stayed home. There was a lot of like guilt in that. Like that first year was a lot of really hard pushing, and I felt like in a lot of ways I didn't give my youngest what I gave my older children. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to overcome. Now I feel like by the time my oldest is in school, like I'm going to have more flexibility than I ever had. I even feel like that right now. So I think she's going to get it on the other end. And I think we've talked about this a lot. Like building this while you're young is such a gift, so that when your kids are older and they, you know, your little kids need you in a different way. But I think if you're more present in the older years, like my 9-year-old needs so much more from me from an emotional standpoint, and she's navigating new friendships and new topics and new areas of her life. Like she needs me present for that, you know. And I think as kids start middle school and high school, like that just becomes more challenging. And so I'm excited that, you know, hopefully by that time I will have a lot more flexibility. And I will say I have a lot more flexibility now. I'm still working really hard, but I'm not treating hardly at all. So I can be at all my kids' school events and all their sports and whatever. So I think I tangented a little bit, but I would not ever go back to working a 9 to 5. Like I was working way harder and just way more of a slave to my job back then. So I think, you know, we're always thinking about the business. We're always trying to make it better. It's always on my mind. It's always in the back of my head still. And so I'm definitely working probably harder than I ever have, but yeah, and just have more flexibility than I've ever had. And I feel like my whole family feels that, you know, that's one thing I would say. And then from a practical standpoint, I mean, I think just the communication between me and my husband, like it's not always great. Yesterday I showed up to pick my kids up from school and he had already picked them up. So you know, sometimes the system breaks down, but we try really hard. I mean, you've seen my whiteboard calendar. Like everything goes on the calendar. We sit down on Sunday and like plan out the week and make sure, you know, everything's kind of covered. And so when that's going well and we're firing on all cylinders, like that's how we make it work. So, and he's super bought in, and he's been super bought in from day one, which has been a really big gift too.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so amazing having the flexibility. Just, I mean, I think I looked at your calendar and it said like softball at noon or something. I don't know. It was hard to see, but yeah, it's just cool to be able to just leave the office, or if you're working from home, run out and do something and then go back and work again. I think
Yeah.
the hardest part for me is definitely my cell phone. Like when I'm home, you can do so much from your phone for your business, whether
Yeah.
you're working on social media posts or looking at your Facebook ads or whatever. It's
And
just really hard for
numbers.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard for me to be fully present sometimes because I'm like, ooh, okay, like hop on Jane app and okay, that last patient did come for
Yes.
my Troy therapist, and it's hard to fully shut down at home, but yeah, the flexibility is so amazing.
I
And
think
I'm
that's true.
excited for that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. It's hard. I mean, I try to set boundaries like I'm not going to be on my phone from like 5 until 8 when the kids all are in bed. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But, we're all just a work in progress.
Mhm.
And I try to I
Yeah.
think too, like having older kids, like we try to get them involved because sometimes they do feel it when I'm working really hard or we're in a really push season. And so we talk about like, oh, these, especially with my older two, these are the goals for this month. And, maybe if we hit X goal, we'll all go out to dinner as a family, or like, we'll go on a beach trip or something. So it just depends on what season we're in, but it makes them excited. We'll say like, oh, and then they'll be like, oh, did you sell any packages today? Like, they'll ask. And so I think it helps make them a little bit involved, and it makes them, see what it's like to run a business. And hopefully that will serve them well later in life too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. Something I find kind of crazy is like whenever I'm Voxering you, Allie, I never know where you're at. Like you're all over the town, I feel like. One you're in this doctor office, then you're at a school event, then you're in the clinic. Like what's your week plan typically? Or like what do you do during the week? Do you work from home a day? Do you like do a doctor marketing day? One minute you're like getting margaritas with like the OBs in the area. I'm just like, how do you do all this? Like all I do is either I go to one of the clinics or I'm working from home. Like you're all over the town, which I think is your superpower too, like for growing so fast. Like
Thank
you're
you.
so good at connecting with different people.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, what's your week look like?
I'm really big on like I feel like community marketing and physician marketing has really been the backbone of our practice. And so I do try to get out there and do stuff. I don't know, it's been adjusting recently because some of my staff schedules have changed. So it's hard for me to do a lot of work from the clinic. I don't really have an office there. Mainly, I treat on Thursdays. I try to be out of the clinic on like Tuesdays is typically my marketing day. So either that setting up meetings, like community meetings, stuff like that, or doing drop offs at physicians' offices, or if I'm gonna speak at a class, or I try to schedule all that on Tuesdays if possible. And then Fridays kind of like my catch up day. My kids go to a Christian school and they have like a church service on Friday morning, so I try to go to that pretty like set in stone, and then I might do like a lunch meeting or something like that, and then I'll work from home and just get caught up on all the stuff. And then Mondays and Wednesdays, yeah, I really try to be in the clinic. So that's kind of my MO. But sometimes like this what's today, Wednesday? I'm like doing this morning and I'll go in the afternoon for a half day. So it depends, but yeah, I do beep up around a lot.
Mm-hmm. So can you give us some tips on marketing to healthcare providers or physicians? I know you probably don't want to spill all your trade
No,
secrets, but
I don't care.
I know you've given me some tips because I'm just like, it's kind of like dating. I was never good at dating, and I feel like that's what it is in a way. Like, okay, what's the first move? I bring the cards. Like, now
Yes.
what's next? But
Yeah.
what would be your approach for like a new OB office in the area or something like that?
Yeah. Well, one, like part of getting out there too, right, is like, I'm in our chamber of commerce in our area is really active. So I'm very involved in that group. And so a lot of times I'm just like, hey, what OBGYNs do you guys know? Does anyone know this person? Can you connect me? So I really try to get like a personal connection. I'm very fortunate. Two of the first OB practices I connect with are like live in my neighborhood. And so I was able to connect with them on Facebook, and they were just super open because again, there's not a lot of people in this area. Now there is, but when I started there wasn't. So I think I I think what I try to do is once you're in with one and like you have their cell phone number, let's say it's an OBGYN, I'm really big about like use your connections to get more people. So then be like, hey, do you have a urologist that you recommend? And they'll be like, yeah, I really like this person. And I'm like, great. Would you be able to connect me with them? I really need someone to refer our male patients to, which is true, right? And then, then maybe you ask the urologist, like, who do you refer for urogyne? Like if they need a prolapse surgery. And so I think just like constantly asking, like, who can you connect me with, being open to that. Even like some of our chiropractors have connected me with physicians. So I think just always being open. And then I'm really bad about this, but trying to just keep, I've been trying to be much better about keeping a spreadsheet of like who I've connected with, who to follow up with, stuff like that. And then, I mean, this is your strategy, Maddie, but I've connected with a lot of providers on Facebook Messenger and just gotten in with them that way and said, hey, can I come, drop some cards off and introduce myself? And they've been open to that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm kind of the type of person that if I'm taking James out for a walk in his stroller, like if I see a neighbor out, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to turn the other direction so I don't have to have an interaction with them. And you're out and they're like, you're probably like, ooh, there's an OB neighbor. I'm going to go walk by and strike up a convo.
You're so funny.
Where I would just be like, oh gosh, I got to go home.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it's my generation. I think I'm a little younger than you, Allie. Not that much.
I think too. No, you are. I think too. There's like this benefit of honestly having older kids, right? Like there's so many people that I meet through their school that are high up in the hospital or are urologists or on their baseball team or whatever, and not like I'm not running around being like, oh hey, you're a doctor, but like naturally those conversations come up, and a lot of times it might be 6 months or a year before someone says, hey, I think I have a patient to send to you, like, can you give me some cards? And I'll be like, sure, can I stop by your office? So I think it's just like the more conversations you have, the more people you meet, the more you're going to build those relationships and then build that, name recognition in the community as well. So I think that's good.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I don't know if you typically calculate this breakdown, but what would you say your guess is for where a lot of your patients come from? Like, would you say it's about 50% referrals or workshops?
Yeah, I do keep this data. We don't really do a ton of workshops. I personally hate doing workshops, so I've steered away from that. So most of them are, I would say about 40% is provider referrals. So doctors, midwives, chiros, I kind of lump all those together. And then another, I don't know, 20% are word of mouth. And then the rest, and then let's see, what's that make? 60? Probably like 30% are our Facebook ads. And then we have probably another 10% that are just like found us on Google or, whatever.
Yeah. So you guys might have heard me talking about Allie before on the podcast. I feel like I talk about you guys. Yeah, she's one that was kind of lucky in a way. Sometimes when you launch your Facebook ad, it just hits day one, boom, and you're getting the right people. You're getting so many leads, and that was kind of the case for Allie. I mean, it happens to a lot of people, but not every single person. Sometimes Meta takes a little time to learn. But yeah, tell us about your Facebook ads. I love the ads.
Yes, I know you love the ads. Yeah, well, and I will say too, I try to keep that split kind of like for where we get our referrals from. I really like to get, a third from doctors, a third from Facebook, and a third from word of mouth community type of stuff. I think what happened was in March, I was bringing on my third therapist, my second full timer, and we needed her, but then it was almost just like all of a sudden I needed double the amount of leads, right? So I came to Maddy, did her course, and yeah, we set up the ads and got them going, and they really made a huge difference in the beginning. I mean, almost like, I would say it was almost too much. Like, my therapists were almost overwhelmed, and then we really had to kind of like go in and create some systems around the Facebook ads, because I think they're a little bit different in how we present like the payment and the packages and stuff like that. So, yeah, but we just dove right in, and it's definitely been a huge part of our growth in the past few months. So I'm super grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Maddie answers all 1 million of my questions about them.
Yeah, so I know recently you changed up your ad. How did it kind of go with your ad? You started with one, more of like a postpartum ad. Was it fruitful the whole time you had it running, or did it kind of die out after a couple months? Would
Yeah,
you say?
it was pretty fruitful from like March until July. And honestly, I think what happened was like I was gone for 2 months in July, or for 2 weeks in July. And it definitely had like gotten stale, but I didn't really realize it. Like, when I was just looking back at numbers, we just didn't book a lot. So,
Mm-hmm.
so then I kind of felt like, oh, what's going on? And you just told me like sometimes the ads get stale and you switch them up. At one point, I also had a leakage ad running, and I think I don't know if maybe I didn't give it enough time, but it just wasn't performing as well. So I ended up just like reallocating my spend back into the postpartum ad. And then we just started doing a diastasis ad in maybe mid-August, and that one's doing really well. We're back to getting, I don't know, 10 leads a week or something from that. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. The leakage ad is really
it's funny because it's
kind
like
of
one of
hit or
your best
miss.
ads, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of high risk, high reward, I would say.
Yeah, so we were just
Because,
getting a ton of men. But I think if
uh-huh.
I did it again and put some different, we talked about some different strategies. I know we talked about it recently
Mm-hmm.
with
Like
my dialysis
retargeting.
ad. I think if we changed the questioning a little bit on the form, that would help. So
Mm-hmm.
we might try it again.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite questions, but completely off topic. What are 3 mistakes you've made since starting your business?
Oh my gosh. Only three. I think the biggest mistake by far was um hanging on to someone that as an employee, that I knew was not a good fit, and not letting her go like way sooner. So, and ultimately, actually, I've done that twice. So, and ultimately, like, realizing how much money it costs me to keep them on. I think it's really hard when you're overwhelmed and super busy and super stressed, and you just need help to like let someone go. But I think ultimately, yeah, like I wish I had done it sooner. So that would be a huge mistake. Um, and I mean, I let one of these people go almost a year ago, and I still feel like I still feel like we're feeling some of the effects of it, because like we just had a patient call recently who didn't have a good experience with the last therapist, and she was debating whether to come back or not. She ultimately came in, but anyway, that was a big mistake. I don't know. You know my practice. What else? I would say I wish I had gotten a little bit of a bigger space when we moved into this space last August. I did not think so we have a gym space and 3 treatment rooms. And I thought that would be good for 3 years, which is the lease I signed. And we are pretty much maxing it out at the moment. So, I mean, not totally maxing it out. We have a little bit of room to grow into. But now, with having 3 therapists and 2 admin there, like, it's really hard for me to be in the clinic. I don't really have an office space. So I kind of wish I had created, and I like being there. So, a lot of days I stay home, like we talked about, because it's too crazy there. So I wish I'd gotten a little bit bigger space. So definitely needed a little more belief in myself, I think, at the time. Then, gosh, I was thinking of something else, but I don't know.
I know it's kind of a tough question.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I think just like this is really hard too, but I think with my first hires, like not having the capacity to train them as much as I could have. And so I think some like bad habits developed and things like that, that I just wish I had been a little bit more hands-on in the early days or had a little bit better systems in place and things like that, because it's harder to put systems in place and backtrack when things have already been a certain way, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's super hard. We've been talking about that a lot, and my first hire too. Um, I mean, she kind of helped me develop our eval script, and then we've changed it several times. And so, yeah, it's just hard because she's kind of been with it through all the changes. And then it's like, what are we even going with here? But all
Yeah.
my new hires, it's like, here's a script, like,
This is how it
nothing
is.
else.
Yeah.
And it's just pretty simple. So yeah, that is hard.
Yes.
But what do you think your long-term goals are for your business? I know I feel like you're secretly kind of competitive, or you want to grow, but then sometimes you say like, I'm good, I'm just gonna hang out, like we are so in a good spot. It's not worth growing. I don't know. What are your goals long
Yeah.
term? Do you know?
I think like yeah, right, on any given day. I think I don't know if it's competitive so much as like I feel like we have the best team and the best like capacity to serve this area. I know I'm biased, and there are a lot of people that drive, 45 minutes to an hour to come see us, and I hate that. So, I think there's part of me that's like, oh, could we, kind of do what you've done and plop a satellite clinic on the other side of town? So we are like directly west of Orlando, and there's literally no one on the whole east side of town. So um,
Mhm.
I think about that a lot. On the flip side, like it's been a very stressful 2 years, and like we're in a really solid
Mhm.
spot. So I think for a while my focus is really just pouring into my current staff and making sure they're successful, they have what they need, and we can just really like max out our current space and availability and focus on that. So I think that's really my goal for right now. But I do think, there's the potential maybe towards the end of next year to grow a little bit more. We'll see.
Mhm.
We grew
Yeah.
we grew fast, I think. Like in the last year we've grown a ton. So we went from just me last July to um by March we had me and three other therapists. So I think there's also a lot of things that fell through the cracks that we just didn't have time to work on as far as like systems and organization within the business. So that's kind of really my focus, making sure the girls get the mentorship
Mhm.
they need and feel confident and stuff like that.
Mhm. I know we talk about a lot that it's just crazy because we have no data to go off of at this point. We both opened in 2022. Our first year, I mean, like this summer, last July, we saw like 40 visits the whole month. Like it was really, really bad. We were really small.
No, but that's awesome. Like, if you just started out, you know what I mean? Like, back then we
I
thought
know.
that was great, and it was great at the time.
And now it's like we're seeing hundreds a month, but it's just so uncharted. Like it felt really slow in July, but it's like, is every July going to be slow, or like are we just stagnating? I don't know if that's a word, or it's just hard to know. Like it's going to be nice, I think, to finally get in a rhythm and see like, okay, like we do slow down this month, or this is typical, like we can expect this many online inquiries each month, and to
Yeah.
just
I
have
think
like a little predictability.
I think you're right. Like last summer for me, it was just me in July still, and um I was maxed out. So every time I had a cancellation, I was just plugging someone else in. So I didn't really feel it. So I think you're right. I think being able to predict the seasonality of the business also takes like some of the emotion and stress out of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's definitely a challenge for sure, being a newer practice.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that first year is really tough, and I don't know, I think it's just amazing though to own your own business, and there's so much, I don't know, power with that in a way. I know when Allie and I first became friends, like one of her main goals was that her husband, if he wanted to leave his job, he could, because they had the funds to. Like, it makes me want to like tear up,
I know, me
because
too.
like that was Allie's like that was like her goal for her business, was like her family. So I don't know. Tell us about that. And like, that's why I'm like, whatever happens, God is going to bless your business, because that's just the purest thing and goal
Yeah.
for a business, I think, to have like your family as a motivation. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean my husband worked very like stressful job, and he worked 2 to 3 like nights or weekends a month, and I just think, he's very hands-on when he's here, but he wasn't really here that much. So um I think as our kids got older, and I mean it was really stressful last year when we were kind of both pushing really hard at work. But yeah, he got an offer. He got approached by our church to take a job in the administration there, and accepted and left his job last month and started the church. And it's been a little bit nerve-wracking, but we're just kind of trusting the process and that the business can support, I mean, there's no illusions here. Church salary is not um,
Uh,
anything that's going to support our family of 6. But we're really grateful for the opportunity, and it's already just been such a gift. And I think, you know, like you said, like it's just, this never would have happened if it was just me working at a hospital or working at an outpatient clinic. So
mhm.
I think our kids will be so lucky to have very present parents, which is really hard when you have 2 working parents. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it just, a business like this can change not just your life, like it's fun for us, but
Yeah.
it has such an effect on everyone around you, your community, for providing this service at
Yes.
this good of a level, but your
Yeah,
spouse
totally.
and
And
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's not lost on me. Like, we're so lucky to do this work. We're so lucky to serve this community. Like, it's such an honor when someone comes to work for me and I get to be a part of like their story. I mean, it's just such a gift in so many ways that I never would have predicted. Yeah, it's been fun. I want to say one more thing about being super busy and having 2 working parents, because I feel like this is so common in our society. Like last year, we just had to from like friends and neighbors for help with our kids. We don't have family locally. And I think there's a lot of like, I mean, when I was a kid, like I was constantly in carpools. And like I just feel like people don't really normalize that anymore. So I want to say, like, you have to accept help. Like, if you're going to open a practice and you're a mom and your husband has a job too, like, you have to just, like, be okay with other people helping, or your kids can, like, not be in any activities. Like, that's just the
Uh-huh.
reality. And I think, and then I, also, help other people too when they need it. But we've kind of like created that in our community. And I think there's such a need for that. Parents are like more stressed out than ever these days. And I think a lot of it is because we don't have these communities where people just help each other.
Mhm. Yeah. So agree. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add, Allie? This has been a fun
I just,
conversation.
I mean, if anyone's debating, like, it's crazy and it's hard to open your practice, but it is 1000% worth it. And obviously, you guys heard, like, it's changed my life in so many ways. I'm so grateful. And I feel like some of my like best friends are these girls that I've met in this group. I mean, um, we lean on each other for business stuff, but we lean on each other for personal stuff too. We had a really stressful personal year the last year. And I mean, these girls were there for me every step of the way. So I think also if
Mhm.
you're debating coaching, like I think that's an amazing way to grow your practice and create a support system because it's lonely. It's pretty lonely being an entrepreneur if you don't have that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really tough, and I know you guys have always laughed. My parents are dentists, and I mean,
We
they
love
just
your
have
parents.
different ideas of like what a practice should be. And like, you're going to have to take insurance if you want to grow and different things. And I'm like, oh gosh, like I've always listened to their advice. Like, I feel so out of control for not listening. But then, like, then I'll hear what you guys are doing. And I'm like, okay, but okay, it works. I can do this. Like,
Yeah.
everyone else is doing it, but I
You have
have
to
to
go in
just push
network with
through.
Medicare. Yeah.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
So it is good because what we're doing is kind of rare, I guess. There's not
Mhm.
a million pelvic health clinics. And
Yeah. I mean, there
yeah,
will be. I think
yeah.
there's going to be more and more out of network physical therapy practices, pelvic or not, because just
Hmm.
the sad reality of our healthcare system.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. And it's going to be good for us, though, I think,
Yeah, I know.
as that
I
gets to
mean,
be
it
more
is
common.
interesting to see the climate kind of changing around here. We're starting to see more like direct primary care practices pop up and out of network pediatricians and it's just kind of like it's becoming more and more popular because I mean PTs and OTs are not the only ones fed up with the insurance system. When I go meet with doctors, I mean here's another tip about meeting with doctors and they ask for do you take insurance and like if they're really like chill young doctors I'm like no insurance sucks you know and they're just like
Uh-huh.
insurance does suck you know and so I think like making a joke about it and just saying like you I mean I couldn't be in business if I took insurance that's the reality insurance is going to pay less than I pay my staff and they get it like they get it
Hmm.
so I think don't be
Yeah.
afraid to like have that conversation with them and just say like we've made this decision. I always tell them if you think your patients are the best fit for our practice knowing what all the things I just told you about our practice refer them if they can't make it work, we're going to refer them back to the hospital anyway. But at least give
Hmm.
them the opportunity to hear what we have to offer and make a decision for themselves. And a lot of them are like, I mean, there's two big OB practices. It's not big. They have two locations. They have 4 doctors at each location. They refer exclusively to us. It's funny because
Hmm.
sometimes we'll get a referral that says like for one of the outpatient places that takes insurance, it'll be there, but the referral coordinator will just send it to us because like she just knows,
Ah!
you know? And so it's it's so good. It's definitely taken me a long time to nurture that relationship. But it's it's crazy. I mean, the doctors they know, they get it. They don't want to have to deal with insurance either.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that advice. I know at first I was kind of like, should I try my best to hide that I don't take insurance or how should I have these conversations? But I think even now, I mean, even more so than when I first opened in 2022, like the doctors are like, all power to ya. Like, that is
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
they're
and I
a
think
little
it's
bit jealous,
about
I think.
like the doctors shouldn't be the arbitrators of their patients' finances. You know, like
Mhm.
they are making assumptions about their patients and they may have no idea. I mean, we'll get it all
Mhm.
the time. We'll get a 22-year-old patient who's in college here call and you know or someone makes a judgment like oh they're not going to be able to afford it and what do you know their parents are paying for it and they don't care they just want their kid to get better you know so you just like
Mhm.
never know what's going on in someone's life and I think assuming that they can't like get this great care that we provide and just sending them somewhere else because of that is doing patients a massive disservice.
Mhm. Yeah, I've been frustrated with our local OB office. They're not around anymore, but they would, when they would send a referral to us, they would preface the patient, kind of prep the patient and say, well, call, see if they take your insurance. If they don't, then call, here's the other option you could call.
Yeah,
And it
that's
was
so
just
annoying.
hard because the patient would come in on the phone already like, I was told I needed to ask if you take my insurance. Do you guys take Blue Cross? And it
And
was
then
like,
the conversation's already all about insurance. Yeah, that's like so
yeah,
frustrating. So that's
yeah, that
another
was
thing I tell
tough.
providers too, is I say, if you think they're a good fit, refer them to our practice. Let us have the insurance conversation because we're really good at explaining it. We're extremely upfront. And, if they can't make it work, we're going to give them the resources that they need. We're not going to just leave them high and dry. And
Yeah.
we do, we do with people
Mm-hmm.
who really can't make it work. We tell them about the local hospital system. We tell them it's going to be a 4 to 5 month wait to get in because that's what it
Mm-hmm.
is here. And then they can make a decision from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but all in the meantime, we've had this great conversation with them. We've built this connection, this relationship, made them feel seen, made them feel heard. When they call the hospital, they're not going to get that. They're going to get, okay,
No.
great. Our next available appointment's in January, and we'll see you then. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so it's just
Yeah.
a lot of people call back and they say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
let's try it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Allie.
Of
Where can
course.
people find you if they want to follow your journey? What's
I'm
your
on
handle on
Instagram.
Instagram?
Yeah, we're just Anchor Pelvic PT. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's it.
All right. Cool.
Thanks,
Well, give
Maddy.
her a follow and feel free. Probably you can reach out to her if you want. She's pretty social. So,
Yes,
um,
definitely. I'm always
thanks
on
again for
Boxer
your
too,
time.
so feel free.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks again for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Maddie. Bye.